We never say that because Adolf Hitler built an excellent highway system in Germany, we should disregard the Jewish Holocaust. We don't say that. We don't believe that. We don't allow that. Hitler did things that were so evil and destructive that no amount of benevolent civil service can redeem him as a statesman. But what about the United States? The United States interned innocent Japanese American citizens in World War II, conducted horrible experiments on American citizens in the Tuskegee experiments and MK Ultra, massacred innocent villagers in Vietnam, killed several million civilians in invasions into Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, other numerous countries, slaughtered innocent women and children in Waco, Texas, shot and killed innocent unarmed college students at Kent State University, incinerated some 200,000 Japanese civilians with nuclear weapons after Japan indicated a willingness to surrender. The list goes on. We don't very often refer to these atrocities committed by the United States government. When we mention Adolf Hitler, we think about his atrocities. When we mention the United States, we do not think of its atrocities, at least if we live in the United States. Do we believe that because the United States is good in other ways, its crimes should be ignored? We don't judge Hitler that way. But many people are perfectly comfortable with the idea that the USA is a good and righteous nation, and they don't consider the evil acts of our government as important. Of course, the people of other nations remember what we have done to them, but inside the USA, we are seldom reminded of our government's bad behavior. So Hitler will always be evil, and the United States will always be good, because we choose to classify the evil acts of those two things differently. The point is, we are conflicted. We don't judge based on facts. We judge based on propaganda. We judge based on self-interest or nationalism, simple denial. We don't judge objectively. We judge in ways to make ourselves feel better. A word you will hardly ever hear in your corporate mainstream media or in government schools is democide, murder by government. In the 20th century, the last full century, governments murdered more than 170 million people with genocides, preventable famines, wars, and other intentional overt acts of murder, torture, and assault. That is perhaps 100 times the number of people murdered intentionally by everyone else put together, including criminals, mafias, psychopaths, gangs, alcoholic, abusive spouses, everybody. Government is not just the most violent thing, the most murdering thing in civilization. It is 100 times more murdering than everything else put together. Government. But government keeps telling us how good it is, doesn't it? We psychologically compartmentalize evil dictators like Hitler, Mussolini, Stalin, Mao Zedong. These were bad men. But government is good. No, government is bad. That is why bad men are drawn to government so they can do bad things on a government scale. Joseph Stalin supervised the killing of 30 million of his own people, but those murders were not committed by Joseph Stalin. They were committed by the Russian government. Any country that has a government could see the same thing happen at any time if someone like Joseph Stalin happens to get into the right spot. Government is the thing you need to project force and power. Government is the thing that uses force, violence, imprisonment, and command. Government is a bad thing waiting for someone to turn it loose. Government is designed to crush our enemies, but quite often governments forget who they are supposed to be crushing and start crushing people who, for instance, don't like government. As long as we have governments, we will always have Hitlers and Stalins appearing from time to time. All that people like Hitler have done is take control of government and use it as a weapon. He garnered enough popular support that he was able to use government to kill the people who opposed him. And from that point on, it was his party. The reason that Hitler used government as a weapon is that government is, by nature, a weapon. Government does not use flattery and gentle persuasion and love. It uses violence, force, command, and edict. Government is the thing that kills and imprisons people. Government always has the potential to be a horrific tyranny, and government always will be exactly as bad as whoever gains control of it. We don't leave automatic rifles and hand grenades lying around in preschools. And we should not have governments where they are accessible to psychopaths. We have to adjust our thinking. If Hitler was bad, then government is bad. Hitler didn't kill 6 million Jews. The government did. It's exactly the same story with any genocide in history. What is the one thing that makes it possible for a psychopath to be a tyrant? Government. We would not have to worry about the psychopaths if we did not give so much money and power to our governments. Government has more weapons, more armed officers, more prisons, soldiers, and agents, more genocides and mass murder sprees and death toll than the rest of us put together by a factor of 100. If the German government was bad only because Hitler gained control of it, that does not mean the German government was not bad. It doesn't matter why anything is bad. What matters is if it is bad and how big it is. If genocide is bad, then government is bad, because government is about the only thing that can execute a genocide. But we compartmentalize our brains, don't we? We know our nation did bad things, but we believe our nation is good. Well, which is it? It can't be both, unless it can be both for Hitler. Can it? Should it? Do we give a criminal, a murderer, a lighter sentence because he donated money to the Girl Scouts? Not really. So when our country has murdered millions of people, which it has, do we just pretend that happened in another galaxy? What do? How do we judge that? If we judge our country's evil and good separately, we have a psychological issue the doctors call disassociation. We fail to see the connection between something and something else. We are fooling ourselves. The same government that did all those good things did all those bad things. Government is a large collection of wealth and power. When a large collection of wealth and power murders people, they murder a lot of people. Government does it big because government is big. But it gets worse. Government never prosecutes itself. That's part of the reason they murder so many people. When they murder people, they don't arrest themselves. So there are no police to police the police. There are no police to police the government. At the government, they are at the top of the wealth and power ladder. There is no one who can come and put the government in jail. So not surprisingly, the biggest murderer in society has no deterrent, no accountability, no restraints or consequences for what it does. You still think government is a good thing? Read some history books. Make the connections in your mind. Don't put mass murder over there and your government over here. If there's such a thing as a criminal, then government is the worst of them all many times over. Hardly anyone has ever been prosecuted for the United States mass murders in Iraq, Vietnam, Waco, Texas, Syria, Yemen, Libya, Afghanistan, Ukraine. There are hundreds of examples. Many we will never even know about because our government does not report its own crimes. So at least your street criminals sometimes get prosecuted. Your government does not. Government not only does whatever it wants, it gets away with it. It is as if this thing called government was created for the purpose of bringing evil atrocities on a mass scale. Nothing besides government can do that. If it is possible to create a harmless and righteous government, a government that could not abuse, murder, violate, or mistreat anyone, it would look very different from anything we have ever called government. Very different. So what do? Stop pretending our governments have not done the things they have done. Judge your government the same way you judge Hitler. If it did something bad, it's bad. If you won't judge your government that way, then don't object if someone says Hitler wasn't bad, because that's what you're doing if you say your government is good. Think about whether you should be supporting the government and the things it has done and continues to do. Perhaps it is time to look at how you can reduce your tax contributions one way or another. Perhaps it is time to question some of the things your government is telling you to do and think. Maybe we should be making more of the decisions that affect our lives, and maybe government should be making less of those decisions. When our government was first established, It cost us less than 1% of our earnings. Our local, state, and national governments now take well over 50% of our earnings. We seem to have let this thing get way out of hand. Big government is not something we need. It is something we have been trained to think is necessary. I disagree. I'm Jerry Day for freedomtaker.com.